everybody. Welcome to Tangle 27. So we had just finished this one, switching between entry content types. And I'm going to move that over to the done column. And we started display content in tab using Markdown. All right, so Markdown, for those that don't know, is a very simple syntax for formatting text. And it's used in a surprising number of places. It lets you do things like one number sign for a heading and two for a heading 2, double asterisk for bold text, and so forth. By using this within your app, it saves you from having to do a whole bunch of formatting. Now, I'm not necessarily asking that users learn this who are going to be using the app, but it's a good way to represent things under the hood. Whenever you want to display something new, like Markdown in React, then simplest thing to do is type in React and then the thing. So let's see. So up top, you see there's a GitHub project. And just look over here. It's got a lot of stars. So this looks like a good one to try out. So tells you how to install it. You just add this line. And then look for the file that we were using before for the body. And it'll be in episodes BF entry. So then you can see our 3 different bodies. So it's here that we want to put the markdown. So I'll start by putting the import here. So it looks like all you have to do is surround the text with this tag markdown. So let's just try it out and see what happens. Looks like it has support for various plugins. The plugin that they are touting here is one called GFM, which adds supports for strike-through tables, task lists, and URLs. Well, that's interesting that the base doesn't have URLs. That's kind of disappointing. Let's go and use GFM. And we still have to install it. So it should be at the beginning of this one. Let's just go right into the database and mess around here. So all right, let's see what happens. I have to save it. Okay, so one thing that's interesting is that you can't see any of the markdown, and the link seems to work, right? So if I click the link, it's working. It's just not showing the formatting. Okay, let's take a look at what is actually being generated for the code here. So I'm going to inspect this, and then you can see that, yeah, see, it is working. Look at this. You got the H1, you got the P, you got the UL. This feels like it's a Tailwind thing. We got to define the styles. You know, and again, I promise soon I'm going to go from the beginning with Tailwind. But one thing about Tailwind is that it kind of strips all the styles from pure HTML and CSS, so you can start at a blank slate. And so that includes something that you wouldn't expect. Like you'd think out of the box that heading 1 would have a certain set of styles, but because Tailwind strips these styles, it's just like normal text. So that means we need to define these things. And so if I'm going to do this, I want to have a class that I apply to all Markdown. Up until now, we haven't really put many CSS files here. We have the the standard style CSS, which is being included with everything. So when adding styles to a CSS file using Tailwind, these things are put in the beginning and they define the layers that Tailwind is going to be using. So I want everything in components. And so I'm going to put layer components. And then the styles within here. So let's just make a style. I'll call it Markdown. And now for Tailwind to see what's going on here, we have to use another annotation, which is apply. So I'll start with some base styles like text base and maybe standard leading. So so this will be applied to all Markdown styles. And then for Markdown H1s, we can do, I don't know, text 3XL and let's try the 2 and the 3 and we'll make that 2XL and just XL. Actually, put this as letting normal. And then here we'll do letting loose, which is going to be more letting, which is more line spacing. And just to really drive the point home, let's put some colors. All right, see what it looks like. You need to put in the Markdown itself. So Markdown, hopefully this will work. Okay, it didn't like text red 500. All right, there we go, heading 1. So let's put a few more here. You know, one thing I wanted to point out, you see these 3 layers? Components is the layer where we're going to be putting things that are specific to components like entry or things like that. But what I'm actually doing here is I'm kind of defining the base styles. So what I could do is instead I could do layer base and then just do this and just actually define the core styles, which will have the same effect. It'll be a different scope. It'll apply to more things in your app. And I think this is fine because we're going to be using these styles in specific places. And so I think they're going to be common, even if we're not doing it within entry. So I'm going to leave this as layer base. So next thing we want to do is UL, which is for doing bullet lists. I'm going to go to Tailwind and type in bullet and its list style type. So you can see the class that I want to use is, let's just try list disk. And same thing, apply list disk. And hopefully that'll just work. Okay, it does. The indenting is a little bit off. I also want to have some padding after a P. So we should define a paragraph style. Let's see if that works. Yeah, it's a little bit, maybe 3. So with UL, I want to do margin left 2 and see what happens. Closer, let's go 5. So now it's in there, but you notice what happened? This is interesting. Okay, so this is a perfect example. Let's go back to what I had before, which is components. And then I had Markdown. And you see how that isolated the changes. So our other components are making use of some of these styles. So I'd like this to be more obvious as a hyperlink. So let's just do A for anchor and let's look for the Tailwind for underline. There you go, decoration underline. And we want to change the color too, so let's do blue. All right, that looks like a hyperlink. All right, one that we didn't put into the database, which we should have, was bolding. So let's open this up. And I'm going to make bullet bold. Oh, look, that worked out of the box. No problem at all. So if you inspect it, it'll probably have strong. Yeah, so strong seems to be working. All right, and let's do that for the heading as well. Font weight. There. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Okay, let's see if the gherkin works. Markdown body. So I need to have a variation of this one that does not have. That should be easy to write. Let's try it out. Markdown body. Everything works. So let's run the entire thing from the beginning before I finish the ticket. So I'm going to just do tests. Everything works except for things having to do with comments. Comment, and tags, which is expected because we haven't written that functionality yet. So I'm going to check in my work. Now I'll make a pull request to move tan20 into main. And it's submitted. Now go up to here and do close active task. Update the issue status to review. I'm going to log my time. And remove the task. Now switch to my next task, which will be video and transcript tab. Move it to in progress. And be careful about this kind of stuff. This says use branch tan20. If I choose this, then it's going to be built on top of the code that I just worked on. So it won't be independent of it. So I'm going to do main instead, and then just be aware, all the stuff I just did will not be in the code base that I'm working on now for this new ticket. So it's not a bad practice to do it this way because you'll start to think in separate chunks more. It'll be very obvious to you when things are missing. So, all right, we're ready to go for video. So to add a video player to your website, we're going to let YouTube do most of the work for us. So if I go to one of the videos, it's going to have a share button, and it allows you to embed. And then it gives you the code that makes it work. Simple as that. So I'm going to grab this. Let's go back. Opening up entry, you'll notice that this is even older than the last ticket that I pushed. And there's a good reason for this. So if I look at Git and I can look at the main branch here, remote, it says tab switching is working. So you can see that in an earlier episode, I branched off to do tab switching and then merged a pull request back to main. So why isn't this here? It's pretty simple because if you look at the local version of main, that's not there because I never updated main on my local repository from the remote repository. So I'm just going to pull, and now you can see it's here, and then boom, the code is automatically updated. So this is something you want to do on a fairly regular basis is update or pull changes from GitHub. Let's put the code that I just copied right here. And you can see this is a key piece of information. So if I put in entry, I think it was called just YouTube. And then we can put the title in here too. And the rest of this is okay. Now, video body is going to be a transcript, so it kind of makes sense to put a heading. Let's do a heading 4. Let's see how this works. All right, something's different. So 3 things you can do when it's just, mangled. One is to restart everything, and another one is to do a new build. And then the third one is do something called shelving your changes. So let's do all of that. I'll stop everything, and then I'm going to do a BF build. Okay, and it's also good to look in incognito tabs sometimes. It's still a problem. So let me shelve my changes. You go into commit, and then you look for the thing that you just did that's different. Shelve silently. And then you see where it says commit and shelf up here? It puts it over here, and it's under 1019. So this is something I just did. So this is a way of reverting your changes without losing them, is shelving them. All right, so the most recent thing is not the cause of whatever this problem is. Let's go to the database, reinitialize it. All right. So it looks like the database got borked in some way. So this is something that you just got to get used to doing, which is when something isn't working, you don't know why, just try to reset to a steady state. So you saw the steps that I took. All right, so now let's unshelve these changes and see what happens. All right, we're getting a white label error. Status 404. So it's not finding whatever link it's looking for. Entry YouTube. This is a subtle bug, but one worth pointing out. See how I put it in quotes? That's not what you do in React. So if you put it in quotes, then it is literally going to just include this text. But if you don't put it in quotes, then React is going to replace this with that value and put quotes around it. So let's take a look. Let's look at the JavaScript. It's got an endless loop here of some kind. See if it happens on the next one. Okay, here's a good error message. Let's Google this. Okay, so they're saying to use the word embed instead of watch. So let's look at and this is going to be in the actual data file. Actually, I think the best thing to do would be to change these to just this, which is the ID in the database itself, and then we have control over the full URL. All right, and then in BF entry, we go back to the YouTube. There it is. Okay, I like this a little bigger. So I'm going to get rid of this hard formatting and do class name. Let's see if this works. Okay, perfect. And then transcripts. Okay, that is good enough, and I'm done with the issue. Let's close it out, and I'll see you next time.